we were at SoFi on both Thursday and Sunday for the CONCACAF Nations League Final Four. It proved to be a disastrous couple of days for the U.S. national team. They lost 1-0 to Panama in the semis and then 2-1 to Canada in the third place game. We taped post-game pods from SoFi after each of those matches. Everybody should check those out. Stu Holden joined us for both of them. John Strong joined us for one of those. You've now had a few more days to reflect. Any lingering thoughts on the U.S. national team?
Well, if you listen to our shows, I think that there is a raw and immediate emotion that comes out. And that's part of what we are going for when we do a instant reaction, and in this case, a live show, which we often do. And then you think, okay, well, with a couple days, in the different air and the light of those different days, maybe you're going to feel different. I don't feel any different, and I do think that it only has the situation has only been exacerbated by more of the questioning of whether this team, one, is good enough, and that in and of itself would give us plenty to talk about, but also the real questioning as to whether these players care when they step on the field to represent what I feel is the greatest country in the world. And I think that conversation is going to continue. Now, I think it's also worth looking at the fact, and we talked a little bit about this, about what the Gold Cup is in this moment. We all know that the U.S. has won multiple Gold Cups. The U.S. going into a Gold Cup traditionally is one of the favorites. And even, notwithstanding what just happened, this summer in the Gold Cup, the U.S. is going to be one of the favorites. But I think because of what has happened over not just the last week, but over the last year and with Copa America, now there is a real pressure and onus on Mauricio Pochettino in the Gold Cup to at least show progress, at least show improvement, and to win back some of those hearts and minds, which will then be a year before the World Cup. I don't know how much of that he is thinking. I don't know if he is fazed by anything that happened over the last couple of games. I was listening to our good friend Tony Miola, thankfully back and healthy. He was on the radio over there on Sirius with Brian Dunseth and the show that they do, and they were talking about this team and a lot of the stuff that we were talking about in terms of how people view them and how they were viewed before, how they view now, and how we kind of want to view them into next summer. And I do think that we have to have some perspective and we have to have a little belief, but these players have to prove to us that they are worthy of our time and our heart and our emotion and all of our belief. And they certainly didn't do it in these last two games. This summer, in the Gold Cup, I hope Pochettino says, you know what? All of the accolades and all of the cachet and all of the resume that we have is all fine and well. But I need some down and dirty bastards out there. I need some people that are going to run through a wall. I need some people that maybe from a talent perspective aren't as good, but I'm going to make it up because they are going to, and I hate to use this word care, but they are going to care more. And this camp, who really came out looking good other than Diego Luna? And why did he come out looking good? Not just because he was effective on the field, but the way in which he played. It is infectious and it passes the eye test. People want to see more of that.
Stu got a lot of credit for saying that these players aren't that good. They're not as good as we thought they were. And Stu and I were here last night covering Gold Cup qualifying. I briefly discussed this with him because I think it merits some unpacking.
Okay.
Over the past few years, there have been people who have suggested that the U.S. has enough talent now that with the right coach and home field advantage, it's plausible that they could win the 26 World Cup. That's preposterous to me. I've said that on this podcast. That, to me, is overrating this generation of players. To me, the U.S. is nowhere close to being able to contemplate winning a World Cup. If you watched Argentina last night and some of these UEFA Nations League games and teams like Spain and France, there's a level of football being played out there that's still completely beyond the U.S. So I think that's where that conversation kicks in. But to me, it's sort of a weird take to have after a loss to Panama, because I've seen these U.S. players beat Panama plenty of times. The U.S. beat Panama 5-1 in qualifying for the last World Cup. The U.S. had won the last 3 editions of the CONCACAF Nations League. The last couple of games they played against Mexico in this competition had us debating whether this was even a rivalry anymore, because the U.S. was so much better that it was starting to feel ho-hum to beat Mexico. So it wasn't like these players underperformed by some arbitrary standard we've set for them. They underperformed by the standard they had set for themselves the previous couple of years. So that's where I think this conversation kicks in about motivation. And is it that these players that play in Europe are starting to get bored with CONCACAF competition? Or is it the manager? Is it Pochettino? And he's doing different things that they're not comfortable with. So I think that's why I went to those places first rather than this whole larger conversation about the players not being good enough.
Look, I know that when we talk, when I say we in the broadcast world, right? When we talk, we recognize that the way we say things is as important as what we say. And there is an element of performance. I've talked to you about this before. And there is an element of being provocative and ultimately being entertaining in the things that you say and not just saying boring, mundane things that everybody says. So when you say it's preposterous for an American team, and this American team, to talk about winning the World Cup, is it just because the there isn't there and the numbers don't add up? Because if before the 1980 Olympics, somebody had said the U.S. is going to win the gold medal, would that have been preposterous? Given the age of the players, the inexperience of the players, and the quality that they were playing against?
Well, I think the vein in which those comments were made was that, wow, the U.S. now has the talent to go toe-to-toe with these top teams. And I think people got carried away. You see a few of these U.S. players playing for big European clubs, and suddenly you think that the U.S. is there talent-wise, and I don't think they are. So I think it's just a major stretch at this point to think that this collection of U.S. players, even on their good days, I never came away thinking that this team was ready to win a World Cup.
But even on their good days, you never thought that the 1980 team was going to win a gold medal.
No, because to win the World Cup, you needed to have 3 or 4 of those Soviet Union games.
Fine, but my point is that when we do this every single cycle, a player or a coach or a pundit will go and say, this team is going to win the World Cup, or this team I think can win the World Cup, or this team should go into this tournament believing that they can win the World Cup. Because what you are believing in is doing something that we haven't seen before. And that's where a lot of it's not negativity for a lot of people, it's just the reality of the situation. But the whole point is, as good as this team may get, or even is right now, winning the Men's World Cup is going to be a surprise. Winning the Men's World Cup is going to be done in a vein where you're going to need a little bit of luck. The soccer gods are going to have to smile upon you. And you are going to do it despite the fact that most people are going to say, you can't do this and it can't be done because it hasn't been done in the past and I just don't see it. And so I push back when people are angry and they think you're gaslighting or think that you are being Pollyanna and delusional when you talk about a U.S. men's national team winning the World Cup. Yes, there's only 440 days plus days before the World Cup. A lot can change. I was looking actually at the lineup in the summer before the World Cup, and I know it was a long time ago. I know it was a different century. I was looking at the lineup in the summer for the national team, U.S. men's national team, the summer before the World Cup. And there were not only players that weren't on the field a year later, but there were players that were starting that didn't even make the team. So I'm starting to think that things can change in the next year. They have to change in the next year. And if you're going to start changing it, start changing this summer for Mauricio Pochettino. He said so many times, I don't care where you play. I just want you to be good at soccer. All right, we'll go figure it out. I will say also there are some possibilities of other players coming into the pool, including players that are getting their passports. So this team may look very, very different come the summer of 2026 as opposed to what they look like right now.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day. and see you soon.